Tony, claims come in, as you know, they sometimes come in fast and furious, and a customer is usually in a panic and trying to understand what their next step is. What we tell them, of course, are two main things. One, you need to report the claim to your insurer in order to ensure that they appoint whoever they need to right away to assess the risk and the loss. Two, to notify law enforcement, which I know you'll go into details about the law enforcement piece. From an insurance perspective, usually what an underwriter will ask for, they'll ask for things like your written statement, a summary of the events of the loss. They'll ask for a commercial invoice, a bill of lading, a packing list to validate and verify the transit, the goods that were being shipped. What do you see on your end? What do you think are the most important things a client should know in reporting claims and thefts in particular?
For the law enforcement side in particular, all of that information is really helpful to have as well, and making sure that it's all together. Basically, you're not scrambling to try and find it when the police come to take a report. So we suggest calling the police, reporting it to your local police first. One of the issues with cargo theft is there's sometimes jurisdictional issues that can cause problems with investigating and following up on those cargo thefts. But the more information you give the police, the better. Any information about the contact that you've had with the carrier, with the broker, those types of information is all good to have, including emails, phone calls, phone numbers, those types of things. The more you can give the police to follow up on, the more likely that they'll have success. We also see in certain places like California, they are in some ways stepping up to the challenge. Over the past few years, we saw a reduction in the number and staffing of cargo theft task forces that were specifically tasked with following up on cargo theft. There's currently a bill working its way through the California State House to give more funding to cargo theft task forces. We've seen that California is the epicenter of the problem. So not directly related to immediate reporting, but there may be some help on the way in terms of more dedicated cargo theft task force. Of course, the most important thing to do is to report it as quickly as possible with as much detail as possible. So that again can become a training thing or a procedure and process thing. Have a reporting form ready to go. Make it easy for people to report and document that information so they can get it to law enforcement.
And we talked about cargo task force teams. So when you call law enforcement, you're not automatically connected to a cargo task force team, right? Is that typically assigned? You see that only in larger cities. Used to years ago, you would see that it was the bigger cities: California, Chicago, Miami, Houston, New York. And you'd see that they had cargo task force. Years ago, what you're told is they would only look at claims worth a certain value, thefts worth a certain value, everything over, I don't know, let's say 100,000 in value. Do you see those things today? What should a customers do? They know to call the police, but they don't know to ask for a cargo task force.
So I think one of the issues is that not everybody knows that these cargo theft task forces exist. So it can be helpful just to ask if there is a cargo theft task force for that particular jurisdiction, for the state. In some states like Georgia, we've seen groups like the Georgia Bureau of Investigation become involved in cargo theft investigations. What you said is true. There may be a certain threshold for certain types of investigations or for certain groups to become involved, but it's always helpful just to ask. In some places where we're seeing emerging cargo thefts, or places that are emerging as hotspots, there may be a particular detective on the force or certain part of the force that's dedicated to those types of crimes. So it's always helpful to ask and see if there's additional support that's available, of course, after providing them with as much information as possible.